This is the Voiceover Marketing Podcast, episode number 33.
Excuse me, what? Can I help you? No. I told you to go outside and wait in the moped. Okay? Thank you.
Oh, this is on. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Voiceover Marketing Podcast. My name is John Melly, and this is the podcast dedicated to teaching in-depth and advanced marketing strategies for people in the voiceover and audio production professions. My goal is to help you make more money by showing you ways to leverage your time, charge more for your talents, and allow you to spend more time doing the things you want to do in your life. Hey there, it's John. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I do appreciate it. I'm really excited about today's episode. My guest today is Jodi Adler, and we had a lot of fun during this interview. We spent a lot of time talking about her book, Auntie Jodi's Helpful Hints. And what I want you to do is pay particular attention to how she describes how she's using her book to market her business and her career. And also listen to why she's using it in certain ways. She talks about retro marketing and why that's so effective. And I've talked about it in a different way in previous episodes, but she's using the phrase retro marketing. And so pay particular attention to that. So let's just go right to the interview with Jodi Adler. Well, welcome back. As I mentioned earlier in the episode, my guest today is Jodi Adler, the creator of Auntie Jodi's Helpful Hints, which is a book that's now available on Amazon.com. And Jodi is a voice actor. She's worked as a news anchor, a reporter, a financial analyst, a talk show host, a stand-up comic, and this is the one that intrigued me out of all of these, Jodi, is a special ed teacher.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks. First of all, thanks for having me on your show. I love listening to it, so this is a big thrill for me. Special ed teacher came about because after I quit, I am the queen of quitting jobs. I don't get fired. I just get bored, so I move on.
Okay.
Well, and I did quit a radio job because the boss was a little bit sick. But we can get into that when, there's no threat of lawsuits and there are none. But anyway,
sure.
So I quit my radio job, and I had a friend who was teaching school, and she said, Jodi, you can do this. This is not so bad. So I went and I took here in California, you can substitute if you just take some tests and get what's called an emergency credential.
Okay.
So I had to pay the rent, so I did that. And I also wanted to act. And as an actress, you need a day job. And waiting tables for me, I don't know. It never happened. And substitute teaching was just a perfect little thing for me to be doing. I could go in when I wanted. The pay was pretty good. The people loved having me there because I wanted to sort of entertain the kids, because you go in as a sub, and I don't know about what happens where in your neck of the woods, but it can be a little bit rough. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm not a big, tall person, and I don't have a harsh demeanor. So I would go in and use a little humor, and the kids all had a great time, and I'd get reviews from the administrators and all that other stuff. And then one day, someone who I used to sub for moved on to a different gig, and the principal said, Jodi, I want you to take this as a long-term thing, and I did, and it was in a special ed classroom. It was what's called a mild to moderate classroom, which means the students all are average to above average intelligence, but they have slight or mild learning disabilities like dyslexia, or they can't write properly, or they have all these different things, or they might be the term used to be emotionally disturbed, but who knows what the PC police changed that to.
Right.
Anyway.
It changes every month, and they don't send the memo out. They just chastise you when you get it wrong.
Ain't that the truth? And that, remind me, that's how Auntie came about.
Okay.
But then I was doing it for a while, and I thought, well, go get the credential. You're doing this. So I went back to school, and I got my special ed teaching credential, and then the teaching world was my oyster.
Okay.
So I started teaching high school math algebra and geometry to special ed kids, and I ended up for like 7 years having a great general ed teacher, math teacher as a partner. We became great friends, and it was what was called fully included, not to bore everyone to death, but I would be in the classroom with all the regular kids, and there would be a few splattered in, high-functioning kids who, had all sorts of good things going on, but they couldn't, multiply, or they couldn't, when they saw a problem on the page, everything scrambled in their head. So it was my job to kind of translate that info to them.
Yeah.
And then I did that for quite some time, and then I decided, no, I want to do voiceover full time. It's ridiculous already. So I quit teaching to do voiceover full time, and that's when Auntie Jodi appeared.
Okay.
Because we were talking about the PC police, and we live in the United States, right?
Right.
We're supposed to have freedom of speech and freedom of thought, but people are afraid to tell the truth as they see it, right? We all have our opinions.
Right.
But people hold back nowadays, and they hold back to such an extent that it's frustrating,
Yeah.
I mean, our rights as human beings, as Americans, as polite people, are getting we're getting pushed around by the people who don't know how to respect all of our mutual rights.
Right.
I'm not saying you have to lie down and not allow me to do what I want to do. I'm just saying live and let live. But we're not really allowed to live and let live anymore because, ooh, you disagree.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Oh, thanks. So good.
No, it's one of the reasons why I love your helpful hints, and it's a breath of fresh air for me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But I want to talk to you about what I love about this whole thing with the Auntie Jodis is that you've created this, and now you've created products and you're marketing that. And I want to talk about that in a little bit. But I want you to tell us the story about the whole voiceover thing. I mean, first of all, you have a great voice, and I can see why this would work for you. But you've done all these other things. Could you tell us this? I know you've started to tell us this journey, but could you share a little bit more about it? It's a long and twisted path, I know.
No problem. So I was working in radio, and I started, when you're in radio and you're in the booth, and there's commercials playing, and there's other people in the booth, you chit-chat, and you don't always listen to the commercials because you hear them every day,
right,
and all this other stuff. So I would be doing the radio version of stand-up. So a radio pal I worked with had a brilliant idea for me. Jodi, you need to start doing stand-up. So I started doing stand-up in the L.A. area, and I got into all these major clubs, and it was really a lot of fun. And my radio boss told me that I had to make a choice. I was either an actor or I was a reporter. And I thought, well, I can't do both.
Yeah.
And because it seemed to me that voiceover is the perfect combination for an actor who uses their voice, right? And it's such a pure form of acting because you don't have your face, you don't have your body, you don't have the set. You just have, your imagination and your acting skills. So I went and I spent 5 years at Playhouse, learned all this acting stuff, and when it came time for me to be cast, because I'm kind of character-y looking, but not ugly character-y looking.
Yeah.
It was kind of well, you're funny, but you're not Melissa McCarthy, fat and crazy, but you're not Jenny McCarthy, tall
right,
blonde. So sometimes it doesn't always fit. So, but a voiceover is so perfect because you are who you want to be.
right.
And you know this. On some days, I can be the kooky aunt or the sweet mom or if there's animation and there's all sorts of different things. And so it kind of not fell in, but it worked its way in. If you think about acting and all the voiceover and all the different things you want to do, plus nowadays with computers, the commute is like almost non-existent. It was a happy place for me to be, and it is a happy place for me to be. That's how that happened. And did I lose my train of thought? Because I've had such an immense amount of caffeine right now. I have no idea.
Yeah, well, I should let everybody know. It's 11 o'clock my time. It's 8 a.m. in California. I'm in Boston.
But, I'm an early riser.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I just drink immense amounts of caffeine, which, I don't know about you, but that's my...
Your vice?
Yeah.
Yeah, I shouldn't drink it either, and I'm sipping a coffee myself, and I didn't used to drink coffee for a long, long time, and then I was waiting for something to download or a bunch of audio projects to do a backup, and I walked into our break room in an old building that we were in, and there was one of those Keurig machines.
Yum.
And I said, oh, I'll try one of these out. And, I make it into like a frap. It's like warm ice cream.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah,
I'm a purist myself.
You go straight coffee?
Well, yeah, I do that. I love coffee, and if that's my vice, well, then I'm easy, really.
Yeah. Pat Fraley once, I was just telling my wife Ann about this today. Pat Fraley once said, I asked him if he wanted some coffee and how does he like it. He says, I like it like my heart, dark and bitter.
I love him. I love him.
I know.
He's so wonderful.
He is.
He's so wonderful.
But
And speaking of coffee, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, talk about getting off the train of thought. We're talking about coffee. But whatever.
Isn't it terrible? But that's the way life is. You asked about my career. That's my career.
Right.
It's like, oh, I don't want to do this. It's not that I don't want to, but look at all these other things I could be doing.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky that I've been able to. I mean, so many people are in a job, and they're scared, and I don't blame them because it is scary, and transitioning jobs, it can be difficult, but you can't spend your life, and I think this happens for a lot of us voiceover peeps. We started out doing other things. I don't know very many people in life who started out saying, I'm going to be a voiceover actor.
Right.
I don't know about you.
No.
But this was not your first career calling, was it?
No, not at all. We were actually talking before we started to record the episode. I was looking at the press release and the bio that you sent me prior to our session today, and I said, well, your background is as varied as mine is. God, I can't even talk clearly.
Sound good to me, so don't even worry about it.
Okay. But I mean, I was saying, oh, yeah, I was a meat cutter. I was a lobbyist. I was like, you a what? You're a meat cutter? And I said, yeah. And so, you've done all these things, news anchor, reporter, financial analyst, and special ed teacher, stand-up comic. I'm going, wow, she's like been all over the place like I have.
Yeah. Decide, Jodi. Make a decision and stick with it.
Well,
that's what some people would say, and to each his own, and that's what Auntie's about. It's to each his own. If you or I want to change careers and do things, thank goodness we're so lucky that we're able to do it. But I was just reading something that said millennials don't do that as much. They're sticking to jobs more.
Really?
Well, I think the job market right now, if you're in your 20s,
is
pretty rough.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I can remember coming out of college. This was in the 80s, late 80s. I had this what am I going to do thing. I sort of had a direction of what I wanted to do. My family had a business, so I went and worked for them for a number of years and then got involved in political campaigns, and then that turned into being a research analyst, and then it turned into the lobbyist thing, and then somewhere along the way I said, hey, remember that radio thing you wanted to do? So, yeah, I get what you're talking about in terms of like, hey, I think I'll go try that. And something that's occurring to me as you're sharing me your story and the Auntie Jodi stuff is the word that's popping into my head is courage. The courage to, you know what, I want to go ahead and do that. Or the courage to say what you think in the face of potential criticism. And I just wanted to maybe explore that topic with you a little bit, see where you get that from and how you handle all of that.
Courage or stupidity,
Okay. You pick.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, if it doesn't work out, then it's stupid, and then if it works out, then it's courage. And where did I get that from? I think, just bearing my soul here a minute, I'm a reformed shy person, really and truly, and I don't know, I think a lot of performers are. I mean, I was the shyest person in school, but I was always observing and seeing who is it that's getting ahead in this little classroom environment, and those were the kids who, unless you had a teacher who was exceptionally observant, and some of them were not, the kids who, spoke up and did what they wanted, and not the ones who necessarily got into trouble, but the savvy kids who knew how to kind of manipulate the teacher and get what they wanted. And so those people had what you call courage, and I was always like, oh my gosh, look at what Debbie's doing, and look what Steve's doing, and how come I'm just sitting here doing my homework and not talking? So, there comes a time in your life, and for me it was in my 20s when you finally say, no, that's not going to work for me in my life, or maybe it's a little bit before that, and you just got to kind of take it and move it. I think it may have happened when I was a financial analyst, and I finally got a job in that field, and they put me in a cubicle, and that was torture. Not that the job was torture, but looking at the cubicle walls, because if you're an entry-level financial analyst, that's like, okay, sit here and crunch these numbers and then bring them out to the boss. And, I do little things because I was bored. I was the one sitting closest to the coffee machine, so the coffee maker. So my boss said, "Oh, Jodi, if you don't mind, just keep a little eye on the coffee machine, and when it gets low, would you mind refilling it?" And I thought, I'm a pretty good cook, and all that. And I said, I don't want to be the coffee girl.
Right.
I didn't go to college to be a coffee girl, so I sabotaged that, and I made the coffee really bad. So sometimes I'd put 2 packets of the little, pre-measured coffee in, and other times I'd put, sweetener in the big bowl, and this was before, I never told anyone. I'd put half a packet, and after about a day, not even a day of really bad coffee, because, everybody loves coffee, the boss said, I'll do it. And he went, and he started making the coffee because, just because I was sitting close to the coffee machine, so it's like, oh, okay. So then, it was passive-aggressive, and I was polite. And I think that's how Auntie evolved. She's a little bit passive-aggressive. She's a little bit out there. She's kind of a combination of, I don't know, Auntie Mame and Miss Manners or Ask Amy, Be polite, but be out there and don't step on anyone's toes, but make sure yours don't get stepped on either. And that isn't an easy road because people, if they don't know it's humorous, they can easily be offended. And it's also, it's hugely tongue-in-cheek.
Sure, yeah. Firmly planted.
Right.
So you say auntie, Jodi. I say auntie. That's
I love that. I wish I said that.
Do you?
Because then people know that I'm not saying I'm A-N-T-I against Jodi. But, that's just our little regional auntie.
Yes.
I'll have to start doing that, auntie.
Auntie Jodi.
Start to remember that.
Well, that's okay.
No, I want to.
Okay.
I'm going to learn it right now. I'll probably forget in about 3 minutes.
So this is a character that you've created.
Yes.
And I love that. And that's it's a very savvy marketing technique because it allows... I don't think it's really an alter ego. I think it may be just a concentrated portion of Jodi Adler. Am I correct?
You might be pretty savvy there, Mr. Sir.
Okay. So tell me how you came up with this character.
I was at a party, and I was watching what was going on, and I didn't know very many people there, and I don't know, I was chit-chatting with someone, and someone asked me my sign, and I, rolled my eyes back in the back of my head, my sign? And people never get my sign right, whatever my sign really is. And so I told this girl the wrong sign. I said, I'm a Sagittarius. And she says, oh, you're so much like a Sagittarius. And she went and rattled off how I am. And then I just kind of grinned, and I said, no, I'm just pulling your leg. I'm really a Taurus. And she goes, oh, that's such a typical Taurus thing to do. And she went on and on. And then I said, but I'm really not a Taurus either. And she looked at me, and she said, are you kidding? How is this? And I said, oh, well, I'm a Virgo. She said, of course you are. And she was like, she justified all of it. And that's how I came up with the first hint. It's like, today, I'm a Taurus. When someone asks your sign, just make it up. And it was pretty fun. And she had a good sense of humor, and we laughed about it. And then I started writing them down. Yeah. And I'd share them with friends. And then someone said, in fact, my friend from Massachusetts, he said, you got to get this going on and, make it a one-woman show, put it in a book, do this, that, and the other with it. And so, step number 1 is put it in a book. And the thing about books is that although I want to be a super-duper huge bestseller, nowadays books are really kind of a means to an end when you go this route. And the book is kind of like a calling card now. And you say, oh, I do this. And then hopefully you get hired to do other things, and you parlay that into other things. So the book is definitely a marketing
It's a business card. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very smart.
But we're in the itsy bitsy stages. But in terms of that, we're going to be doing, and I've never done this before, so this should be fun. We're going to be doing a book signing at a small bookstore in Pasadena. It's called Century Books. Okay. If anybody's in the LA area. So the whole thing about that is that people come, and I'll be there. Jodi will be there, but Auntie, I remember that.
There you go.
Auntie, she's going to be having the book signing. Certainly not Jodi Adler, and it's going to be like a little. Well, Auntie would call it a soiree, but it's going to be a little party, and it's going to be a book signing, and I'm going to do a little bit of talk. So here, you bring in the stand-up. I'm not doing stand-up, but you bring that in. You bring in the voiceover because you know how to talk. You bring in the writing. And I mentioned I used to be a writer. Anyway, I wrote for newspapers, so you bring in the writing, you do all that, and you bring it together, and there it is. And
it's a good venue to display all the different talents and skills that you have.
well, let's hope so.
No, that's great.
And it's all part of the fun of working, because I think that if you don't like your job, then you don't like your life. And I have talked to people about that, and they say, oh, well, my job is just a means to an end, but I think that they suffer in some way. And we're lucky in this country. I mean, look at people in like in the Middle East or wherever.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
I know. They're not allowed to do anything, and if they step out of bounds, they're dead, right?
Right, yeah. Oh, it's
step
horrible.
out of bounds, and we get social media banishment, but who knows if the NSA is tapping out my phone now because of some naughty thing I might have written. And
Yeah, so what?
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I want to explore a little bit more of this, but I have this weird question I want to ask you.
Go.
Because do you have siblings?
Yes.
Where do you fit in that whole scheme?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest too. Okay.
And you're the oldest.
I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest of 5. And see, now this is what intrigues me, because you're kind of like this break the rules kind of person where, see, you're at that cocktail party and someone says, what's your sign? And you just make it up. Whereas I go, oh, I'm a Capricorn, because that's the truth, because that's what you're supposed to do, is tell the truth. And I'm just intrigued
I told
by
the
it.
truth for many years.
Yeah? Okay. What prompted the
Eventually
whole...
tell the truth.
Oh, okay. I'm not saying that you lied. You were just... Well, you kind of were. You were just playing. Yeah.
It's just fun. I mean, why not make it fun?
I love that thinking, though. That's the cool thing. That's why I wanted to ask. Because my brothers are more apt to go... They're more apt to mess with people, whereas I'm like, what do you mean? And then I'll sort of mess with people, but not on stuff like that. It's weird, but I love it. So that's
I have a brother. He totally messes with people, more so than I ever do, and I don't even know half the time if he's messing with me. So,
okay.
But that's what baby brothers do. And then my sister is pretty straightforward. I mean, she's a great audience, but she would only tell you the truth about her truth. I don't know about my version of her truth, but that's the way it is.
That's funny.
But it's all fun. I mean, and it's also, everyone can market themselves this way, is the way I see it. Because if you're at a party and you're shy, and a friend of mine who has a wife, he's asking me about, oh, she's so shy, but she likes your hints. I said, well, just tell her to put on a party mask, because people go in, and whether we're not trained socially anymore or we are, but I think we miss out on that. I mean, let's say 100 years ago, people were trained in how to behave at parties, and they didn't, and it's not that they had to follow those little rules of the road, but at least they had something in their arsenal to deal with social life. Now we go to parties and, people don't know how to just make small talk. It's funny. It's crazy. So, if people can't make small talk, then, you can try to stir it up and say, oh, well, what did you think of this latest legislation? Don't you just love it? And you bring up something that everybody in the room would hate. Like in California, bring up global warming and say you disagree and watch the room collapse.
Yeah.
But you have to, and then you have to wink at the very end. But you don't have to. I mean, if you want to say, look at it's freezing where you guys are. Is that global warming? What do I know?
Oh, yeah, it's just awful. Don't even talk about the weather right now. It's just, I'm so done.
Tell me. I knew that because, I'm psychic.
Yes, I know. Forgot to mention that off of this bio sheet that I knew that. It's kind of like the woman you were telling all the different signs to. I knew it. It was like, she's the Long Island medium. I knew it was an uncle.
Well, the reason exactly. And here's a line. If you tell people you're psychic, here's a line that always works. You're somewhat frustrated by your work and feel if you're given the chance, you could bring more creativity into the mix. And tell me, you don't know a person who wouldn't agree with that.
Oh, that's awesome.
You're psychic. So you arm yourself with some little phrases and just watch your world open. It's ridiculous. Here's another one. People don't know how thoughtful you really are, do they?
Oh, my gosh.
See, psychic. Everyone loves that line.
Where do you come up with this? This is...
In my insane little world, because in Jodi Adler world, I don't say all these things. People think I'm straightforward, but believe me, I hold my tongue. And it comes up because, I look at people and they're so sweet and so sincere or so nasty, sometimes people are nasty. And so I learned Morse code so that when I drive, I can swear out people out with horn toots. Yeah. Dash, 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 dot, dash, dash. Go figure that out.
Yeah.
Little torn hoot. And then when you go by, you wave and you smile and,
Yes.
determine how many fingers to hold up, and there you're good.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
So the book, you're hysterical. I love it.
Thank you.
So the book, how did the book come? I mean, obviously you've been writing these hints. Is it just a collection of hints? I haven't looked at the book. I've looked at a little bit, but I haven't read the whole book.
Well, then, it's fine. But it came about because at a party, I was talking to some auntie, excuse me. See, I told you I'd forget in 3 minutes.
No.
Auntie friends and fans. And someone said, "Oh, you got to put it in a book," because I had originally was going to another career. I was going to learn how to be a screenwriter.
Yeah.
And I was going to put Auntie into a play or a sitcom or everything. And I thought, you know what? There are people who are much better at this than I. And I just left that screenwriting. So I thought, well, yeah, let's put them in a book.
Okay.
So someone I know is an indie publisher editor, and I was working with her for a while. And she organized it and all of that other stuff, and she found an artist for it. And it's going to be updated and changed in a few months. And I don't know if it's going to be edition number 2, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all a marketing thing, because I was talking to a PR person about it, and, you're talking about the best way to move it forward. And it may be to change. This is how it's always in flux. Even though I know who Auntie Jodi is, the world doesn't. So perhaps if instead of the title of the book being Auntie Jodi's Helpful Hints, perhaps that's the subtitle or the tagline, and we change it to something like Blink. Malcolm Gladwell has
Sure.
that one word. So what if we reorganize it and make it a little less hidden? I don't know if it's hidden or not, because to me, my friends and fans, I use air quotes there, know what these hints are all about. But maybe somebody in the world, she or he sees that and thinks, oh, well, that's Irma Bombeck.
Oh, yeah.
Or whoever. I'm not telling you how to clean the carpet. My version of cleaning the carpet is hire someone or put a new rug over it if there's a stain, because you can't get rid of some of these things. You either get new carpet, hire someone,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not going to be able to fix that.
Who is this book for? What can people expect to find in the book?
People can expect to find fun ways to tongue-in-cheek deal with our crazy world. And if you look through the book, you'll thumb through it, and you'll find a funny way of dealing with situations which we're always in. Sometimes, like in the grocery store, and I go to the express line a lot because I don't have the patience to make a long list and stay in the store long enough for more than 10 items.
Mm-hmm.
So I get in the line, I have my 8 items, and or 9 items, and chances are there's going to be some cheater in that line ahead of you, right?
Yeah, with 13.
I know, or 20. And I asked a cashier about this once, and she said they're not allowed to say anything.
Oh.
At least not here in L.A. And if we say anything, we're the bad guys.
Right.
Because I once did say something, and some woman yelled at me. Can you imagine? And she said, why don't you just get a life? And she took one of those dividers, and she put it in between her 40 things, and she says, now, there you happy? She started yelling at me.
Wow.
And I know. So it's just a way for all of us who have had our rights pushed around by the people who think their rights trump ours, to deal with it, and in a funny way. I mean, I have a friend, and she swears it's the best guest bathroom book around.
Okay.
So she puts it in her guest bathroom, and I've gotten quite a lot of sales out of that little thing, because people walk out of the bathroom and they want the book. Or, for instance, keep a pack of Post-it notes with you at all times, And if somebody aggravates you, like the parking around here is insane, go find a parking space, and then there'll be someone who has a new car, and they'll be taking up 2 spaces. So put a little Post-it note on there, and put exactly how you feel, and you write on the Post-it note. You're not doing any big damage on the window where they'll see it. Please be a nice parker. You're selfish and mean, or something.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a 4-year-old would say, and put that little note on their car, and you're feeling better. Or speaking of the grocery store, if they're these cart pushers who leave their cart and come back to the line, I always put Auntie Jodi has never done this, but Auntie puts a few extra items in their cart for them to help them out. So, or just if there's no time to go pick something up in another area of the market, just throw something from your basket into their basket and see what happens, because people are rude everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just about controlling the rude. And those of us, and I see it all over the place, because even, we're the United States, we're kind of polite out there, and people who aren't polite, like terrorists, are taking advantage of us.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we're too nice to, it's like, hey, what are you doing? Yeah, no.
Exactly. So it's all about, it's putting the brakes on the mean, it's putting the brakes on the rude, and it's doing it with, a wink and a smile.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's all about, we have to learn, and I have to learn this too. You have to learn to stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
Even in voiceover. I'm looking at voiceover. How many times have we done a great job on an audition? We get a call back, and we do a good job on the callback. And the client, as nice as they are, still isn't sure about, well, do they want Jodi or John? And so we do a third callback where we give specific line readings, and then guess what? We never hear back from them. And, I'm not saying that you have to say yay or nay to every one of these auditions, because that would be insane. But when it's down to two people, perhaps the nice thing to do would be to say, we love what you did. We decided to go with a male voice this time, but we're going to keep you there for when we need someone who's, snarky and funny in the next round, and female. Because, we're artists. We've gotten used to it, and that's something as artists you have to learn, is that you're not going to be told certain things. But in the real world, if you're interviewing for a job as I'll say financial analyst or whatever it is, and you make the top three, they're going to call and tell you, or you're going to get an email, or you're going to get a letter. Thank you so much for interviewing with our company. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, it's a courtesy.
It's courtesy, and I no longer expect it in acting, and I'm sure you don't either, and it's ridiculous because of the thousands of people who probably audition for a job, but, it's just one of the ways that things are slipping, and will they ever get back there? Who knows? You have to look at it in a fun way, and if you don't, then you're going to be wow, you're going to be so sad.
Yeah.
So we're lucky, we're allowed to look at things in a funny way.
So is Auntie Jodi's kind of an outlet for all of this? It
Yes,
must
I
be.
think
Yeah.
you're very astute, sir. Yeah, it's an outlet, because I certainly can't go around talking the way Auntie Jodi talks. I would be ostracized. So
How do you think how does Auntie Jodi get away with that?
Well, she's big and bold, and she's fun, and people like being around with her. And when she says things, people aren't always sure if it's directed at them, because everybody's included. So, and it's all fun. It's like at the party when I'm playing with people. It's half the time it's to amuse myself,
Right?
Because I get bored,
Right.
and how often am I going to talk about the snow and this? And we talk about the weather, and we talk about a little bit about politics or our jobs or whatever.
Yeah.
But then it gets boring for me. So.
You spice it up for your own savage
Exactly.
amusement.
I mean, I can't get everyone to agree with me or play along. At Thanksgiving, I wanted to do the wave at the table, but my mom would go along with it. But everyone wouldn't do it.
That's
but I
awesome.
think it would be fun. Or you bring a beach ball and start knocking it around. Some antiques might be hit, but it's fun.
That's great.
See what happens if at your next family dinner, what's the next holiday coming up? I guess Easter or Passover, depending on whatever it is you are.
Right.
And, suggest, let's do the wave.
Oh, we used to do this crazy thing. We would actually say incoming, like there's a incoming shell, and someone would get up, and we had this table in the kitchen, and there was like a light that would hang over the center of the table in the kitchen, and to light the table. And someone would stand up and hit it so that it would start to swing. Another person would lean over and start to flick the switch, so it would look like lightning. And then the rest of us would take the edges of the table and start to shake it and lift it up and all that kind of stuff. And you waited until toward the end of the meal so that the glasses weren't full of whatever was in them, so nothing spilled all over the place. But we'd go, incoming! And then on cue, everybody would take their role, and we would do it for guests.
I love your family. I love your family.
We would do it for
guests.
guests.
So much fun. fun.
And they would say, they would go back to, like, Mary, my sister Mary would bring a friend over from college, and then they'd go back to school, and they'd be like, you need to go to the Melly's house and have dinner. And they wouldn't say.
I
go. We haven't done that in years, but it was hysterical. And we would really mess with people's heads.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
See, you guys don't even need this. And I think that...
No, I need it. I need the reminder because, you just need to have some fun. Lighten up, I guess.
And lighten up. It's all about lighten up. You guys don't even need this hint. But any of them, seriously, you guys don't need it. See, some people don't need it.
Yeah.
But, then there'll be other times. Oh, here's another one. We're all around people who are on the cell phone these days, and we hear their conversations, and they don't care. So now, when I'm at the gym or somebody's really loud, what I do is I start answering them when they're talking on the phone, and I take part in the conversation. And we all need to do that because this is just overload. And, I read a study once that listening to a one-sided conversation, as we all do on cell phones, does something to our brain and sets it off. So if we start taking part in the it puts us in a weird place.
Huh.
And people are afraid to give their opinion, and they're afraid to judge, and,
It's an interesting time that we're in, I think. I think technology has had a real profound impact, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. And I think we're in an interesting place. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah.
So, Jodi, one of the things that I really like is that you have created a product, because a lot of my episodes of the podcast, I talk a lot about how voice talent, many fall into the trap, if you will, for lack of a better way to phrase it, of just looking for auditions and looking for opportunities that other people have. And that if you look on the other side of that coin, that we as voice talent have skills and talents that we can create our own products and services that people will buy from us. So there are multiple ways to make money in this business, but I think most folks look at it from, I'm looking and auditioning for jobs that people will have for me, and therefore I have to compete against everybody else who's out there auditioning for these particular opportunities. And what I love what you've done here is you've created, first of all, the character of Auntie Jodi, who has a message, and now you're creating a product from it. And you mentioned earlier in the interview that you're using it as a marketing tool. And I wanted to see if we could talk about that a little bit.
Of course. So I use it as a calling card. And when people ask what I do, I say, I do voiceover work and I'm a writer. And so both of those ideas are cause for a great deal of interest because very few people do it. And then I'll either have a postcard that has the book and a link to the book or a QR code that takes you to the Amazon page, or a little business card that also has that. So, and sometimes even in my purse, if it's a big enough purse, I'll have a couple books. And then if you hand it to them and they start reading, then they become a fan of yours, and they either want to buy the book or they want to find out more about your skills. And I always have something to hand to people, either a book, a postcard, or a business card, all with the Auntie Jodi logo and the website and the link to Amazon. And it's all about making friends, having them become fans, and then putting them on a list. And my list is growing, hopefully. And once I'm hoping there's bleed over between the two. And that's the whole point of it, is that if people like the Auntie Jodi, or they don't even have to like her, they just have to be intrigued by it. So then they start exploring, what is this crazy Auntie Jodi thing, and how is Auntie Jodi, what does she do, and what is she about? And so then I have these, they're kind of old school, but it works because when we're talking to people, you could easily say, find me online. But if people have something to hold and to put into their hand, and you're in person with them, then that's retro marketing. But retro works because nobody's doing it anymore.
Right.
Everybody sends email, and that's great. But email can easily not be opened. And unless you have a email program that tells you whether or not your email is opened, you never know. It could be opened and not read. And so I'm going a little retro because nobody's doing it anymore. So retro for me is stuff you can touch.
Yes.
And phone calls. email is great, but email is mass, and email is people are bored with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the book, and I have the little cards, and I have the postcards, and then I'm hoping that somebody sees it and it gets transferred to some big muckety-muck somewhere, and they say, oh, Jodi, well, her hints are funny. We need a funny person to do voiceover. Or her hints are funny. We need somebody to make a major mega superstar on a TV show, or, whatever it is.
Or to speak at our conference or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking engagements, right. I think that's a little bit of how this little book signing came about, is that someone was talking to the bookstore owner. It's one of the few independent bookstores still in the county. And, she said, oh, yeah, we have this space. We want, local writers to come in and do their thing. So that's what I'm doing. And, it's word of mouth. It's quiet. It's subtle. It hits you in the face because nobody does it anymore. And that's how I'm doing it.
Well, I one of the questions I wanted to ask you, but you already answered it, was, is it just a Kindle book or is it in print? It's hard. But so you've got an actual book, and it's retro, but it's something tangible, and there's a higher perceived value than just like a PDF file.
That's true.
And that's so important, and people miss that. People kind of scoff at, you send out CDs for demos. Well, there's a way to present a CD, and people are going to be like, Melly, yeah, right. Well, okay, let's take a look behind the scenes here, and I'll show you how it works. But you've got something of perceived value. How many books have you thrown away?
Quite a few, and I don't consider it thrown away. You mean given away?
Well, just like tossed in the trash.
Oh.
Do you ever do that?
I'll give them to Goodwill or the library.
Right. That's the point. So they stay in circulation somewhere.
Right.
Because you feel bad about throwing a book out. I mean, unless it's a piece of garbage. But I mean, it's the point I'm making is that it's so easy to click delete on an email or get rid of a PDF file, or to really just, toss away a trifold brochure or a business card. But you've got a book. It's like, oh, wow. And they may not read it, but, they're going to move it 10 times on their desk or hand it off to somebody like you just said, rather than just throw it out. Right. Or they'll give it to the library or to Goodwill. It stays in circulation.
Right. And nowadays, I don't know who I was talking to, but oftentimes these days, books like mine, not that I don't, as I said, want it to be a major bestseller, but they're used, just like you said, they're the way calling cards used to be used in the past. I mean, it has to be a book of some sort of value, but here, there are a lot of, say, coaches and entrepreneurs who have a book ghost-written for them, so that it gives you legitimacy in certain fields. Oh, well, I'm a published author, so then, they say, oh, well, we're going to hire her or him to do speaking engagements, or, oh, we're going to when we need an authority on a news piece, we're going to call Auntie Jodi up, about manners or dealing with electronics in public places or whatever it is. So
yeah, you just hit two words right in a row that I wanted to point out: authority, author.
Yeah,
that's where it comes from.
Right, exactly. Oh, you're smart. Ooh, smart and funny. Now there's your calling card. I hope you have those two things on your voiceover description: smart and funny.
Oh, thank you.
Because our voices as voice actors, we bring our history to our voice.
Amen.
So whatever you've experienced, and it's all actors, but you bring your life to your voice. That's why, as you get older, and thank you, dear Lord, our voices don't age the way you don't need a facelift for your voice.
Right.
So if you keep it, and so if you can be 40, 50 years old and still be playing 20, 25, depending on how you sound. Of course, when I was 12, I sounded 40, so that's no good for me. But
okay.
Well, but it's all about marketing yourself and keeping yourself in the loop. And I think I know some people who are handing the book to their agents and are reading it in waiting rooms of agents that I might like to meet or sponsors I'd like to be with. And people see it and they get intrigued if they have time. You put it on a coffee table, or as my friend does, she keeps it in her guest bathroom. People see it. You never know who's going to see it. Last week I was judging a speech contest. These darling high school boys were giving, or they were boys this time, it's boys and girls, but they were the 3 finalists for whatever the speech contest was.
Mm-hmm.
And the gentleman running the contest was sitting across from me at the table, and I gave one book away, and then all of a sudden, other people wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all marketing, and who knows, these people may have connections to voiceover, acting, writing. It's all an evil plot to get ahead.
I love it. Have you, or are you going to create an audiobook version of this?
Well, that would be the next best thing. I've started posting a hint a week as an audio version on my site, and I also post it on Facebook. But yeah, eventually, I'd love for it to be a book. I have to start talking to those people, and I have a couple connections, friends there. So, someone once told me, well, that when the time comes for you to make this into an audiobook, I'm going to help you negotiate a good deal. So, yay, and I know it will happen. But the good part is that I'm not going to be hiring anybody to read my own book, right?
Right.
I'm going to and look at that, and I'll have my own audiobook calling card too. So, yes, of course.
And then they can link to each other and all that kind of good stuff.
It's all about, isn't it wonderful the things we can do with computers and links and scanners and...
Oh, yeah. And that's the amazing part of the technology that I love so much is that you can... Are you self-published or did you go through a publisher?
It's called indie published, which is a form of self-publishing. I
Okay.
didn't do it So, no, in fact, that's also a marketing thing because when I was speaking to this original editor, we were talking about our options, and she said, well, this could definitely go the big publisher route, or you could go indie publishing. The thing about indie publishing is as an unknown, which is what I am, you have immediacy. So after you and the editor are ready and you have control, it goes up, and it has to be approved by the Amazon people and all that, their editors. But you have more control and you make more money. And it's the thing is it's much more immediate. If you go the old, not the old school, what is it called? Not the
Traditional.
Traditional. Thank you for that word.
Sure.
Publishing route. There's a huge gap in time. There's all sorts of other parameters that have to be met. There's very little money to be made. Not that I'm doing this as a huge money-making operation, but, they're doing you a favor by publishing your book. And, oh, yes, that's wonderful. And I'm not going to say I don't eventually want that because I do. But it's really a long shot for an unknown.
I've talked to other people about publishing books, and they have made comments that, particularly the material that you have in here, a lot of publishers want to water down the content because they don't want to offend anyone. They want to have the broadest possible audience because of the costs and their distribution and all that kind of stuff. Whereas, if you've got something a little more targeted and niche-based, they don't like to do that as much. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
This might be the best way for you to go about it.
It might be. And then I was talking to a different editor recently, and he said that say that word for me.
Specificity?
There, I got it. It's what's selling these days. So if you have a laser beam as opposed to a shotgun, that's how things are selling these days. So, old school is great, but look at Joan Rivers. I mean, she was pretty specific.
Yeah,
her.
That's true.
And look how huge she was.
Right.
I mean, she's my idol, really. Look what she did and the career she had, and she read her own audiobooks, and she was really, the masses who are smart, I think, loved her, but she was also really specific.
Mm-hmm.
So, and just like voice actors, if you're specific when you're doing copy or a character, isn't that going to be more likely to be sold than if you're doing something broad? If you know what you are or who you are and what you're selling, like a voiceover actor, then you're going to get picked up. If you want to please everybody, you please no one.
Yeah.
And that goes for voiceover, too. You have to know. I mean, look at the copy that I have sitting on my desk. I could do it as Miss Bland and read it, and would I get picked up? No. But if I have a point of view, and I know who I'm talking to, and I know what I'm doing with this copy, then the buyer doesn't have to really know who I'm talking to or what I'm thinking in my head. They just know that they like what they're hearing. And it is a specific thing that I'm doing in my head. I'm sure you do it too, and any voiceover actor worth their salt does that.
Yeah, you. Who's your target? Who are you speaking to?
Right.
It's not the, if you're within the sound of my voice. Yeah, right. Boop, see ya.
Exactly.
So this has been a lot of fun. I want to respect your time, but how can people find Auntie Jodi's Helpful Hints on Amazon? Is it on Amazon or just type that in?
It's on Amazon. Yeah, it's on Amazon. You can type in Auntie Jodi. You can type in Jodi Adler. That's Jodi Adler. Or you can go to my website, which is Auntie, A-U-N-T-I-E, Jodi, Jodi.com. Or just do a massive Google search. Put all that junk into the search window, and you'll find me. But it's $4.99 on Amazon for the e-edition, and it's like $10 and change for the paperback. And thank you. This has been so much fun, John. I love talking to you.
Oh, thanks.
Your family is my kind of family. I'm serious. You're so much fun.
It's an interesting bunch of people. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I have one last question for you.
Yes.
Do you have any helpful hints that you want to share with us before we say goodbye?
I always have helpful hints I want to share. Let's see. Here's one. This is one of my favorites. Too many people with too many problems trying to suck some of your happy spirit away? Turn on your inner who cares switch and readjust your personal settings. Whenever someone overshares yet another tidbit from the inner workings of his or her life, stare, smile, and reset. Then you keep repeating this mantra in your head. Who cares? Go away. Of course, uttering the phrase aloud helps speed up the go away part of the process.
I love it.
But seriously, people overshare. I don't care. I want to be your friend, but I don't need to know about your daughter's coming of age, okay?
I love it. I wish I lived in California for multiple reasons, but one of them would be to hang out with you more.
One day we'll hang out.
That sounds great. Jodi, thank you so much for your time. This has been a lot of fun for me, too.
It has. It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Wasn't that fun? I really enjoyed that interview with Jodi, and I want to thank her for coming on the program. And I know she's excited about the interview, too. So please go ahead. If you want to pick up a copy of Auntie Jodi's Helpful Hints, there's a link to it in the show notes. Feel free to go ahead and click that. Also, I know you love audio because you listen to podcasts. And I just want to let you know about a new sponsor for the Voiceover Marketing Podcast, and that is audible.com. And I've arranged for an opportunity for you to get a free audiobook. So if you want to go get a free audiobook, just go to vomarketingbook.com. That's vomarketingbook.com. And that will let you sign up for a free audiobook from audible.com, a new sponsor to the podcast. So thanks to Audible for doing that. And I hope you take advantage of it. I think it's a really cool opportunity. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I've got some more stuff coming up in the near future, and I want to thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you next week. Take care.
Our program originates in the Boston studios. We hope you'll join us again. Until then, we bid you au revoir, keep your chin up, and the best of luck.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Voiceover Marketing Podcast. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to it at voiceovermarketingpodcast.com so you'll get notices of new episodes, and please share it with your friends and colleagues in the voiceover world. Also, it would be a huge help if you'd like this podcast and rate it on iTunes to help keep it near the top of the list. Feel free to share your comments and questions about this episode and future topics you'd like discussed at voiceovermarketingpodcast.com. And if you'd like more information on one-on-one coaching with me and mastermind group opportunities where we focus on growing your business, feel free to drop me a line at my cyber assistant's email address at mike@johnmelly.com. Thanks for listening. Now go out there and share your voice with the world.